Today, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview of the Pacers-Knicks Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm going to give you guys my prediction on who actually wins that series. But before we get started, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and to continue to support my channel.
Biggest the Super Bowl.
The Eastern Conference Finals is here. We have the New York Knicks going up against the Indiana Pacers. And man, I mean, before the playoffs started, man, if you would have told me that the Eastern Conference Finals would have been the Knicks and the Pacers, I think I would have looked at you like you were crazy. And I'm sure a lot of people would have looked at you like you were crazy if you would have thought that the Pacers and Knicks would face each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. But here we are. You know, the Indiana Pacers, they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the New York Knicks beat the Boston Celtics. And, you know, maybe there was a little bit of luck involved. You know, maybe you can say that, you know, both the Cavs and the Celtics weren't completely healthy, but it doesn't matter because the Pacers and the Knicks both took care of business. And quite frankly, you got to give them credit, man. Like they for a decent majority of the series, both the Pacers and Knicks look like the better teams in each of their respective series. And so you got to, you know, whether luck or not it was involved, and maybe you can say that both teams benefited from a little bit of health on their side or whatever the case may be, the Pacers and Knicks got the job done. And they both deserve massive credit for getting this far into these playoffs. And so the Pacers and Knicks will be playing each other in this series coming up. And I got to tell you, man, I am amped. I'm hyped up, man. I can't wait. I can't wait for this, man. I'm excited about this Knicks Pacers series, man. I really am. Like, I'm actually more excited about Pacers versus Knicks more than I am the T-Wolves versus the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Like, I'm very excited about what we have in store in these Eastern Conference Finals with the Pacers and Knicks. And I want to start off with this matchup. I want to start off with the Pacers first, because the Pacers have been overlooked by most people. You know, if you look at where the Pacers have been, you know, since the month of January, and I think I mentioned this in the previous episodes. But if you look at the Pacers since January, they're 41-16. They're 7th in offense, they're 7th in defense, they're 6th in net rating, and if you look at their record over that span since January, the Pacers had the 4th best record in the entire league. The only teams better than the Pacers over that stretch were the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Boston Celtics. The Pacers were the 4th best team in the league record-wise since January, and so this is a Pacer team that was playing at a supremely high level over that stretch. And when you just look at how they play basketball, I mean, it's really a fun brand of basketball. You know, they play fast. You know, you look at where they are in pace, they're like 9th. They're in the top 10 in the NBA in pace. You know, they're top 10 in offensive efficiency. You know, they move the ball. They're in top 10 in assist rate. You know, they get to the paint. They shoot threes. They hit threes. They just offensively, they are a machine. And it starts with Tyrese Haliburton. Like, Tyrese Haliburton is the guy that makes it go. Like, look, Tyrese Haliburton, he's not a guy that's going to put up 25 to 30 points every game. Like, he's not a high-level scorer, even though on some nights he's capable of going off for, you know, big scoring games every now and then. But, you know, he's a steady player. You know, he's efficient. He moves the ball. He takes what the defense is giving him. You know, he loves hitting that pull-up, that step-back pull-up three that he takes. You know, he's good in pick and roll. He's a very good passer. He can find, you know, he can He can draw and kick and find an open shooter. He can lob the ball up to a Miles Turner or an Obi Toppin or a Pascal Siakam. He can find Andrew Nembhard or Benedict Mathurin or Aaron Nesmith or Siakam for threes. Like he has a lot at his disposal, and it makes the Pacers tough to guard. And he's the star that stirs the drink for this Pacer team, right? And so it all starts with Tyrese Haliburton. Like he's the floor general. He was top 5 in the league in assists. So this is a guy that he does it all, man, on the offensive end. Like he's the guy, he's the point guard, floor general, leader. And so it starts with him. And if you look at how he's been playing in the playoffs, look, man, Tyrese Haliburton ain't like my type of player. Like he's not a guy that's going to go off and get you 30 points and do all of that most of the time, but he's steady. He's efficient, and he's delivered in clutch situations for these Indiana Pacers, especially in the playoffs and especially in the Cavalier series. Like you look at the step back jumper that he had when the Cavs were up 7, and then the Cavs kept making mistakes, and then all of a sudden I think Tyrese Haliburton was at the free throw line. He misses the first free throw, or maybe he made the first one and missed the second one, but whatever. He ended up missing the free throw and getting his own rebound back, and then he just backs the ball out, and he had Ty Jerome guarding him, and then excuse me for that. And then Tyrese Haliburton, gets to a step back 3, hits it contestedly in Ty Jerome's face, and he gives the Pacers a lead and they end up winning the game. And he had another moment against the Bucks in the first round where he takes Giannis off the dribble and he scores a layup over him to win the game. And so this is a guy that's not afraid to make plays in the clutch. And so whatever the Pacers do, man, it starts with Tyrese Haliburton. But they got other dudes as well, man, like Miles Turner. Like I gotta give Miles Turner some credit, man. And offensively, this is arguably his best season. He's shooting nearly 40% from 3. He's scoring against mismatches in the paint. He's making his presence felt on the offensive end. He's a real threat. He's become an all-around offensive player. And defensively, he's useful as a rim protector. And so Miles Turner gives them a real look. And quite frankly, what Miles Turner does as a shooter is huge for this Indiana Pacer team because they play 5-out basketball. And that, look, man, if you have a center who can hit threes, it is tough to guard as a defense playing 5-out, because as an offensive player, you have all the space in the world to get to the cup and to boogie on some dudes and cross people up, because you have all the space to do whatever you want to do. Because you know that if the defense is helping out the defender, somebody's going to be wide open because there's space. And so the Pacers they're tough, man, because of that ability to play 5-out basketball, which is what they do, man. You have a guy like, Miles Turner who can stretch the floor and shoot the ball. Pascal Siakam. I want to talk about him. Pascal Siakam has long been one of my favorite players in the league for like the last 5 or 6 years. Man, I've loved this dude's game. As an Atlanta Hawks fan, I've been begging for the Hawks to trade for this dude. And there was a moment where I thought the Hawks were going to trade from a couple of years ago. But, that fell through and it didn't happen. And he ended up going to the Indiana Pacers. Sucks as an Atlanta Hawks fan. But, Pascal Siakam has done great work for the Pacers, man. He's Mr. Consistency. He's one of the more versatile scoring forwards in the league. He can score on the post. He can score on the perimeter. He's gotten better as a 3-point shooter. He can pass. He can handle the ball. He can do it all on the offensive end. And so he gives them just a real threat offensively. And most importantly with Pascal Siakam, he has championship experience because he's won a championship with the Toronto Raptors back in 2019. And so that helps these Indiana Pacers. And so he's been huge. And look, man, talking about the Indiana Pacers, look, offensively, that's what people know the Pacers for. It's what they do on the offensive end. But defensively, man, they've been much improved. And it starts with players like Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith on the wings at the small forward 2 guard spots. These are 2 dudes that can they bring it on the defensive end. They pressure you 94 feet. They pressure the ball handler. They make things tough on you at times. And you got a guy in Aaron Nesmith. He can guard you up on the perimeter. So you're gonna be seeing him on Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges at times in this series, I'm assuming. And so the Pacers are a good team, man, and their bench ain't too bad either. We talk about Bennedict, Mathurin and TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin. And so look, man, this is a Pacer team that goes 8-9 deep, and they're tough. And Thomas Bryant is giving them some decent minutes as well. So I gotta give it up to the Pacers, man. Like I gotta give it up to them. Like they've done their thing. But hey, they're gonna have their hands full against these New York Knicks. Because you look at the Knicks, and look, I'll admit this, the Knicks, the Knicks haven't always been flashy. In these playoffs at times. Like you look at how they played against the Detroit Pistons. Like it was ugly. That series was a little ugly at times. And look, the Pistons, to their credit, they make things ugly. They don't make things pretty because they're a feisty team. And that's how it looked in the first round of that series. But the Knicks pulled through. And they pulled through because they have a little man by the name of Jalen Brunson, who's been Mr. Clutch. And he won Clutch Player of the Year. And hey, man, Jalen Brunson, he's been impressing me more and more and more throughout these years. And so you have a guy like him who got them through the Pistons series. And quite frankly, he got them through this Boston series with Jalen Brunson because it's a guy that's fearless, that makes big shots. And look, man, he's tough to guard for a little dude, man. He's just is, man. He's big and strong. Like he's 6'1", but he plays like he's 6'8", 6'9", because he bodies you up. He's physical, big, strong. He's crafty. He has great angles to where he gets to the basket. He has great footwork. He's crafty. I mean, he's tough, man, when you talk about Jalen Brunson. And like it doesn't, and I think what I love about Jalen Brunson, it doesn't matter who you put on him. He's gonna give you this work, man. No matter how great of a defender you are. Like in the first round, he was giving that work to players like Malik Beasley and Sir Thompson. And Sir Thompson is a very good defender. I mean, I know y'all saw the game winner he had over him. And was it game 5 or 6? I think it was game 6 actually in that series. He gave them the game winner over him. And then look, Derek White is a very good defender. Drew Holiday is a very good defender. And Jalen Brunson was giving both of them the business. And so in step back threes, crossovers, step backs, hezzies, using insane footwork to get to where he wants to get to on the floor. Like Jalen Brunson, man, you got to give it to him, man. He's a bad dude, man. A bad dude. And he represents New York the right way. And the Knicks, man, like the Knicks wouldn't be where they are without Jalen Brunson. And you got to hand it to him. You got to hand it to Jalen Brunson. Like he's one of them. I said in the last episode, I think Jalen Brunson has become the best guard in the league that's under 6'5". I really do. I think Jalen Brunson's the best guard in the league that's under 6'5". You gotta hand it to him. The guy just delivers in the postseason year after year after year. And in the regular season, he just does nothing but produce. And he He produces at a high level, and he produces at an efficient level. Like, most guards that are his size aren't overly efficient play as scorers. Jalen Brunson is. He gives you 25 to 30 a night, and he's shooting around 45+% from the field, and he's shooting nearly 40% from three most of the time. And he's delivering. And he's doing it with the attention that's all on him. And his ability to score makes things easier for his teammates, like Josh Hart, who can cut to the basket. And he does all the dirty work, rebounding the ball and slashing and making plays in transition. And then you have Mikal Bridges, who in these playoffs, he's been exactly what the Knicks have paid him and gave up all those picks for him to be. You know, as a guy that can, hit threes, attack closeouts, you can run some offense through him at times, and he can get to his mid-range stuff as a scorer. And so he's been huge. And OG Anunoby defensively, man. Defensively, he's been doing this thing, hounding on the perimeter. And he's been hitting shots and getting to the basket. And Karl Anthony Towns, man, I can't forget about him. I can't forget about Karl Anthony Towns. I've long been a fan of him for years. And he's one of the more versatile, skilled big men in the league. He's gave you 24 and 12 throughout the regular season. I know his efficiency's been tailing off a little bit in the playoffs, but look, man, Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best in the business, and he's been exactly what the Knicks have asked him to be as that second scorer opposite Jalen Brunson. But there's also an unsung hero when it comes to these New York Knicks, and why I'm starting to get all in on this team. I gotta shout out Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson has given this Knicks team a different look in the paint. He's given that team a different dimension defensively. He's been that anchor. He's been that rim protecting center. He's made things easier on Karl Anthony Towns, and he's made things easier on the rest of that Knicks defense. He's put the pieces together. He's closed the puzzle. Defensively, this Knicks team is getting after it on that end of the floor. And Mitchell Robinson's a big part of that. Like, y'all look at the plus minus. Typically, when you look at the final box score of the Knicks in these playoffs, you will typically see Mitchell Robinson in the positive, in the plus category. Because when he's on the floor, he makes an impact on the defensive end. He makes an impact on the boards and on the glass and blocking shots and making his presence felt on defense. He's switching out on players like Jaylen Brown, holding them in check. Mitchell Robinson, he's made a real impact on these New York Knicks, man. And I think he's going to be a huge key in this Pacers series. And so when I look at this matchup, with the Knicks and Pacers, it's fascinating to me because you're gonna see, Jalen Brunson. He's gonna be guarded by probably Andrew Nembhard. You might see Aaron Nesmith at times on him as well, and so you got that going for you. You're probably gonna see Pascal Siakam, and Miles Turner on Karl Anthony Towns. And whoever's not on Karl Anthony Towns, the other guy might be on OG Anunoby. You're probably going to see, maybe Siakam at times if he's not guarding Cat. He might see him on OG Anunoby or Mitchell Robinson. So it's a fascinating matchup in this regard. And on the Knicks end, you might see, it's going to be fascinating to see who Jalen Brunson guards. Jalen Brunson, you might see him on Andrew Nembhard. And you might see, Mikal Bridges. I'm assuming Mikal Bridges is going to be on Tyrese Haliburton. You're probably going to see OG Anunoby on Siakam. And you're probably going to see Karl Anthony Towns on Miles Turner. What happens if Karl Anthony Towns is defending pick and roll? Can he get out to Miles Turner quick enough when he's switching? That's something to look forward to. And so it's a lot of X's and O's in this matchup. You know, the styles is also different as well. Like the Pacers are a team that plays fast. You know, they play at a high octane pace. You know, they're top 7 in the league in pace, whereas the Knicks, as good as they are offensively, they're not a fast-paced team. They're actually bottom 5 in pace. And so the Knicks are the type of team that likes to walk the ball up and down the floor. And so the styles of play is a little different. And like they always say, man, styles make fights. And so you got two differing styles, you know, meeting up against each other. It makes for a great series, you know, because one night the Pacers style might win, and then the other night the Knicks style might win. And so it's a lot of fascinating matchups in this series that I'm looking forward to. You know, it's going to be a lot of adjustments that teams are going to have to make. You know, Tom Thibodeau, what adjustments he's going to have to make. You know, Rick Carlisle, what adjustments he's going to have to make. You know, so a lot of this is fascinating to me. But when I look at this series, and look, I'll be honest, I've gone back and forth on it. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on who I think's gonna win this series. But if I had to predict and bet who I think ultimately wins this Pacers-Knicks series, I'm gonna take the Knicks. I got the New York Knicks over the Indiana Pacers in 7 games. I got the Knicks over the Pacers. And look, I'll be honest, like when I look at the Pacers and you look at how the playoffs has gone, one can argue that the Pacers have actually been a little better than the Knicks, and that the Pacers have been the more connected team. And they've been a little deeper, you know, and they've been the more cohesive team when you look at the Pacers. And so you could make a great argument for why the Pacers could win this series. And they could win the series. But I'm going with the New York Knicks in this series for 2 reasons. One, I think the Knicks are the more physical, imposing team. I think they have a little more up over the Pacers. I think they have a little more size over the Pacers. When you talk about Mitchell Robinson, and I think Mitchell Robinson's the difference, man. I can't say enough about Mitchell Robinson. I think he's the difference in this series just because of the physicalness that he brings. I don't know if the Pacers can match the physical presence of a Mitchell Robinson. I don't know. And so when you have a guy like him, Karl Anthony Towns, I think this is a good matchup for Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns just feasted on these Indiana Pacers over the course of the season. He had a 40-plus point game against the Pacers early in this season. And so I think this is a good matchup for Karl Anthony Towns. I look at Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. They're 2 big dudes. They're big and physical wing players that are like 6'7" and over. You know, they just have a little more size. And Josh Hart, even though he's about 6'6", 6'7" as well, like he's a guy that crashes the glass and he plays physical. And so I'm looking at that matchup compared to what the Pacers can throw at them. But also, this is the other reason why I'm picking the Knicks over the Pacers in the series. The Knicks have Jalen Brunson, and the Pacers do not. I love Tyrese. I've come around on Tyrese Haliburton as a player. I don't think he's Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is special. Jalen Brunson is special. The way he's been playing in these playoffs, the way he's been willing these Knicks into these wins is remarkable. This kid might be 6'1", might be 6'1", 6 feet 6'1", maybe 6'2". He might be short for a guard. The man got a heart for a lion, man. And Jalen Brunson's becoming one of those cats in this league where it's just hard to bet against a dude like him. It's hard to bet against Jalen Brunson. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I think Jalen Brunson is the best guard in the NBA that's under 6'5". I believe that. I think Jalen Brunson is the best guard in the NBA that's under 6'5". He's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. Jalen Brunson's unbelievable, man. And I just think when a game gets tight, I'm betting on Jalen Brunson to deliver the goods because he's done it all year long. He's done it throughout these playoffs, and there's no reason for me to believe that he won't deliver the goods in this Indiana Pacers Knicks series with the NBA Finals berth on the line. I'm going with the Knicks in this series because they have Jalen Brunson and the Indiana Pacers do not. And so, like I said, man, I got the New York Knicks in this series, but hey, man, I think we're gonna be in for a barn burner, man. I think this is gonna be an epic series. I think this series is gonna go 7 games. I got the New York Knicks in 7 games in this series over the Indiana Pacers. And hey, man, I can't wait. I can't wait for this, man. New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers Conference Finals. Sign me up.